Oh, hey! So it's FM23 time, and therefore, time for a new team. Enter AC Reggiana. Associazione Calcio Reggiana 1919 is a club based in Reggio Emilia over in the northern region of Italy. Due to financial troubles and poor play in recent years, they are currently in Serie C Girone B. AC Reggiana's last appearance in Serie A, Italy's top flight of football, dates back to the 1996-97 season. And thus, we are here to try and change that sooner rather than later. Yet again, here's Captain Tsubasa influencing my life and my FM save decisions. So before the season starts, we sell Fausto Rossi and invest that money in grabbing a few players like Andrea Paolucci from Virtus Entella, Timo Krastev from Fiorentina, and Kasper Panaman from Bologna. We'll need him, as our highest paid player and team captain Lucas Sigarini is out for, at minimum, the first half of the entire season. So with our schedule in place and our expectations to at least qualify for the Serie C playoffs in place, we go into the first game of the season against Virtus Entella in a 5-3-2 formation with a defensive midfielder, and it all ends in a 0-0 draw.
That was a bit anticlimactic.
So our form is a little inconsistent at the beginning of the season, as we do win some matches against the likes of Alessandria and Torres. We end up losing a very close game against Guppio because communication is in fact a struggle, and then draw against teams like Fermana and Obia in our first 6 games of the season, prior to finding ourselves winning 5-2 in the first round of the Coppa Italia Lega Pro against Novara, which is a Serie C tournament between all teams involved in all 3 various groups, with the winner getting a bye to the second round of the promotion playoffs, which is ideally where our board wants us to be at the end of the year, so a tournament like this and winning it probably helps our odds of actually making it all the way through. What doesn't help, however, is the fact that over the course of these games, we keep losing players like Eric Lanini, Timo Krastev, and Dennis Chiesa to injury. So our next game against Imolese, we do win 3-0, and Marco Rosario ends up busting this thing out after to that stunt. The FM gods do see fit to punish us accordingly as we go on an abysmal streak of games with a draw against Recanatese, a 5-3 epic that does not end well for us against Siena, and then a big warning, which is the derby of Via Emilia against Cesena, in which they score early in the game with a free kick. We end up losing it 1-0, and then to top it all off, Cararese comes in and just kicks the absolute stuffing of us 3-0. And of course, it doesn't help that we also lost some more depth players in Alessio Luciani and Santo De Angelo to injury, as our medical ward begins to look something a little bit akin to this. So with those losses, we're now 12th in the league and nearing the relegation playoffs. The chairman of the board and the supporters are ready to throw down with me if this form continues, and so I had to take a deep good look at myself and our tactics.
3 giorni dopo.
We needed to go full Italian. The first test of our new formation does come out successfully in a match against Brosesto in the Coppa Italia Lega Pro with a dominant 5-1 win, which leads into some more wins in the league play process against Pontedera, going 4-1 against them, Montevarchi being next, coming into our house and being on the receiving end of a 4-1 beatdown as well. Third round of the Coppa Italia Lega Pro against San Giuliano City is a bit of a tighter affair, but thanks to a goal on their end of the spectrum here from Mohamed Varela, we do end up beating them 1-0. We do take that momentum into San Donato, beating them at their own house. Lucesa Libertas, who are relegation candidates, do get floored in a 4-0 loss, and then Vespasaro is beaten to end the month unbeaten. But in December, the winning streak does come to an end after a tough draw against Ancona in the 90th minute, off the most asinine own goal I've ever seen in my life. But we do recover by winning in the quarterfinals of the Coppa Italia Lega Pro against Vicenza, only to then see the unbeaten streak outright end at Rimini's hands in a 1-0 loss. Thankfully, we do bounce back with a pair of wins against Virtus and Tella, and against Alessandria before tying 1-1 against Fiorenzuola and going into the holiday break in a much better position in the Serie C table standings. Now, with the January transfer window, I wanted to add depth to the midfield. I tried to bring in Davide Mazzocco on loan from Cittadella, but then our board decides to block the move entirely because apparently I haven't brought in enough young players to be here.
As if we needed any more evil bald men in our lives.
Alright, you know what? Fine. I'll cave in. I'll go ahead and bring in some young players, like Emanuele Torasi, Enrico Salegin, Jeremy Bro, and Pietro Rovaglia, plus a pair of signings for next year in Gabriele Bellodi and Damiano Cancellieri. Better yet, I'll go ahead and just win all the rest of the games in January on top of it all. Does that make you happy? Will you let me sign somebody over 25 now that I've done this?
3 days later.
Oh, Cittadella parted ways with Mazzocco mutually? Does that mean I can actually sign him now? Cool. Now, February was our busiest month yet in terms of fixtures, but we do come out of it fairly well. The boys understand the assignment of getting a pair of wins against Obia and against Imolese. We do have a bit of a bump on the road against Recanatese, who end up drawing us there 1-1. But against Avellino 1912 in the Coppa Italia Lega Pro in the second leg, we do dominate with a 5-2 win. We end up getting a draw against Siena 0-0, but we do end up winning against our heated rivals in Cesena and against Caradese, and that result does put us tied in first place in the league. With only 8 games left in the season, it's a slippery slope between 1st and 5th, and with March being a busy schedule, we had to be on our toes. And we did, with 5 wins and 2 draws, and then leading into the second leg of our final of the Coppa Italia Lega Pro against Virtus Verona, which by virtue of winning the first leg, the second leg ends up with a close chance by Kasper Paneman taking this free throw here and missing it just shyly, but it does go into full time with us still having the advantage, and it leads us to winning the Coppa Italia Lega Pro here, getting a nice title in the process. And if our team does need to go into the playoffs for promotion, that guarantees us a bye into the second round, which is pretty huge because you just don't know with these schedules. Unfortunately, this unbeaten streak we had going does end at the hands of Rimini, who come into our home and beat us 2-1, meaning that things will come down to the last game of the season, and the media does see fit to ask us to what results we're looking for in this game.
Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
I honestly couldn't have said it better myself, and with that we are underway in the final game of the season as Fiorenzuola comes into our home. We have a chance of sealing our title chances here against them overall. Biggest thing to keep in mind is that everybody's playing games in this final part of the season, as we can see here. Gubbio did win their game. They are 2 points ahead of us due to this result, meaning that we do need to pull off the victory here if we are to get promoted automatically by winning Serie C. Things start off rather spectacularly for us in the 4th minute of the game as our goalie Venturi sends a long-range pass that finds Kasper Paneman, who then splits the defenders and finds the back of the net from outside of the box. Genius move by him. He has been on fire throughout the latter portion of the season. And we get another chance in the 69th minute through a set piece that nearly ends up being a goal if not for the Fiorenzuola goalie. However, we do have a bit of a scare in the 87th minute where Fiorenzuola finds a set of passes there, and we think that they have the tying goal via Mattia Morello, but that thankfully gets called off due to an offside. Thus, we hold on to the 1-0 lead, and with it, we become Serie C Girone B champions, becoming automatically qualified for Serie B, which is an accomplishment in and of itself, as the board just had our expectations being to be playing in the playoffs and be in contention, but not necessarily earn automatic promotion. So we're a bit ahead of schedule, getting up there, which is good for the boys, good for the budgeting, good for everything else that is to come. Pretty great accomplishment, all things considered, and with it, our mission to get AC Reggiana back into Serie A takes a step forward next season around, but no doubt Serie B will be a tougher going for with all teams involved and such, but we will tackle that challenge once we get there next season around. We will see you then. So it's my second season with AC Reggiana, and last season we got ourselves promoted to Serie B. But imagine my surprise just a few weeks into the off-season when our club gets taken over by Indian investor Nikhil Rao, who basically tells everyone that they will stop at nothing to make Reggiana one of the greatest forces in both domestic and continental football. My friends, the bald fraud is gone, and our new chairman basically not only cleared our debts, they gave us an extra 15 million on the bank budget. I didn't hesitate to start putting some of those new funds to use, as two of our signings in January officially arrived in Gabriele Bellotti and Damiano Cancellieri, plus we signed quite a few other youngsters listed here, but among the key signings are Jacopo da Riva, Matteo Stoppa, and Karim Zadadka among them. We also did make Jacopo Pellegrini's loan spell from last year into a permanent stay with the club, but with our previous goalies being out of contract and one going back to being on loan, we had a decision to make in terms of who would be between the pipes this season. So between either new signing Andreas Jungdahl or our best youth prospect from last season in Michele Colio. In the end, we decided that Colio probably would do the trick here, even though he was much younger and nowhere near as experienced. What can I say?
But when it comes to the children,
Reggiana.
it's for the children. We teach the children.
With the Serie B promotion, we also do find ourselves in the qualifiers for the Coppa Italia, and we start off against a Serie C opponent in Novara Football Club. And then out of nowhere, our chairman just decides to give us an extra 20 million to bank. And to me, I see it as a sign that maybe we shouldn't just settle for avoiding a relegation. Maybe we can do a whole lot more this year. With that in mind, we beat Novara 2-1 in order to qualify for the first round of the Coppa Italia, which then matched us against a Serie A team in Empoli FC. But during that game, thanks to Petar Stojanovic's big mistake of getting himself sent off with a sliding tackle, we were able to capitalize and hold strong for a 1-0 result and an upset against the Serie A side in the process. That momentum was something we used as we started the regular season in Serie B to start off strong with 4 wins in a row against Cagliari, Como, Catanzaro, and Pisa to start the year. But then we get a taste of reality that this is not going to be anything like Serie C, as we draw against Crotone, lose against Cittadella, and draw against Perugia to end September in a down note. October does hold some better results to start, and we're keeping pace, but the one game that's been marked on the calendar for every single Reggiana diehard since their promotion is the first game of the season against Parma. The first Derby d'Alenza since May 2017. The name of the derby derives from the Enza River, which forms the boundary of the provinces of Parma and Reggio Emilia. The rivalry itself stems from a historical rivalry between the cities of Parma and Reggio Emilia, which is transcendent of sport as a whole. But in recent years of the derby, Parma has won the encounters, along with the fact that in terms of the amount of trophies and overall success, Parma does have us beat. But then, the boys decided that we were just gonna walk into their home and stomp them 4-1. We are not messing around anymore. We are coming for this entire... Well, losing one of our starting strikers isn't good. But hey, there's no need to freak out. We do have the depth. Everything is gonna be fine.
4 to 6 days later.
Every time, man. Every goddamn time!
We cannot escape the injury bug every year, and I hate it. So, with our November results being mixed, as well as the injury bug to worry about, I decided it was about time to dive into the transfer market for the January. A key defender that can play in our full Italian strategy, and some backup tactics in our pocket, such as a prototypical 4-3-3 gegenpress or a cautious take on a 4-4-2 would be necessary. And so, I went ahead and got Juan, who is a Brazilian defender playing in Sassuolo for about 1.8 million. We also decided to make Andrea Ristov's stay go from a loan to a permanent one starting next season, so that's pretty neat. And then December comes along, and with it, we start off surviving against Ternana, and we do take the early lead against Spal, and then this happened. I just have one thing I would like to say to Nicola Zaniolato right now.
I hate you!
Benevento beating us at home 2-0 after that game isn't an inspiring sign, but we do bounce back by somehow getting a clean sheet against Sassuolo, who are right on our tail in the standings. Now, by the stats on the screen that you see here, you probably noticed that the name of Sassuolo Stadium is the exact same as ours, and that in this fixture, we were considered the away team. We'll circle back to this one later. There's some history here. Next up, we get our second round match in the Coppa Italia against Cagliari, which comes down to the wire as a goal for each side came during the second half, and we ended up taking this whole thing to penalties. Somehow, our now 16-year-old goalie manages to hold his ground and makes a save during the PKs, and with our team confirming all 5 chances, we advanced to the third round of the Coppa Italia. Gotta say, it feels pretty good to be holding our own so far, when expectations were just to be competitive in it. So hey, maybe this means that we might get another Serie B side, or a mid-table Side A side like we did with Empoli. AC Milan? At the San Siro, to boot?
I just want to know how, man. How?
Now, with this bit of news out of the way, our next games see us get shut out by both Bari and Cagliari at home in Serie B. So, with injuries and inconsistencies piling up, the winter transfer window is one in which I needed to make something happen. Then, I took a deep look at our regular tactic. Now, the full Italian tactic does feature a target forward as one of the striker positions. That's normally either been Pellegrini or Montalto playing in it, but I wanted a more long-term answer at that position moving forward. So I sent the scouts far and wide to try and find us our next target man for this January window. The wins did start piling up again during this month, but with the Milan game looming at the end of January, and our chances at Coppa Italia glory being most likely at death's door, it was at that time in which I reviewed the footage from our earlier games this year, and realized that when we played Pisa, that the answers I was looking for really were right underneath my nose. Lorenzo Luca was still there. Ajax did not, in fact, buy him after his loan spell with them last season. So I knew what I had to do. So with the remaining money that we had left from the deals for midfielders Connor Coventry from Torino and Michele Colo-Colo from Ascoli confirmed during the January window, we ended up going with a full core press approach between the transfer fee, league appearances, league goal bonuses, etc. And on deadline day, with 10 or so hours to go,
and I have waited a long time to do this. We got it! We got it!
Thanks to all of that, Luca was able to suit up and debut in the Coppa Italia game against AC Milan. And well, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that Lorenzo Luca did score on his debut with AC Reggiana. The bad news, though, is that Milan also scored. They, in fact, scored twice. and thus we are eliminated from the Coppa Italia. But while losing out on the Coppa Italia is a bittersweet pill, we are in contention for one of the 2 automatic promotion spots in Serie B, and having a 6'7" hoss of a human being as our target man can only help matters moving forward. And Luca definitely seems to thrive in the role because for the next couple of games, the man is an absolute machine with 7 goals in 6 games total as we win 4 out of 5 before our next big game. Another Derby della Lenza, except this time it's in our house against Parma. So go figure, we blow a 2-0 lead and end up with a 2-2 draw out of it. We do bounce back against Salernitana, but a 2-2 draw against Hellas Verona is not exactly ideal to end the month. With 7 games left to go in the season and the race for automatic promotion spots being between us, Sassuolo, Hellas Verona, and Ternana, we do ourselves some favors by defeating Brescia and Palermo, with Lorenzo Luca scoring 4 goals in the process, but the twisted ankle curse strikes yet again as Panaman does get injured in practice and we are without him now for the rest of the season at its most crucial time. We definitely feel his absence in the game against Ternana as we have to rescue a draw late, and with it, we lose our spot at the top of the table to Sassuolo. The race comes down to the wire with 4 games left to go, but the point differential between 2nd and 3rd place is enough that if we can beat Spal, we do at least guarantee promotion to Serie A in some way, shape, and form. And we do just that by beating them 2-0, and with it, we are going to Serie A next season, baby. Let's go! While the excitement is in the air to where our own base chairman throws in another 9 million into our coffers, we do still have 3 games to go, and with it, a chance to win the Serie B championship to go up in style. And Luca understands that assignment as he scores 4 out of 5 goals during the 5-1 win against Benevento, and with Sassuolo also winning 4-0 against Reggiana, it does set up a showdown in the second to last game of the season where the winner will have the Serie B championship in their trophy case to go along with promotion. Now, I mentioned earlier that we'd circle back to Sassuolo once we got to this point, so let's talk for a minute. While Reggiana was experiencing a lack of success and financial troubles during the 2000s, Sassuolo was a club on the rise which dragged itself from the dredges of Serie D to go all the way to Serie A by 2013, backed by Mapei, which is a chemical manufacturing company that just so happened to purchase what was then Stadio Città del Tricolore in 2013, in order to give Sassuolo a stadium that could accommodate Serie A crowds compared to their original stadium. Then they even renamed it Mapei Stadium, Città del Tricolore, and Reggiana Ultras have been salty ever since. Now, there are way more details to the story, but at the end of the day, this is a chance to exorcise some demons and show up the guys who make us pay rent on this stadium, so we make it a point in the second to last game of the season to not only just win, but win it with style by beating them 4-2. And with that victory, we have seized the Serie B championship, guaranteeing ourselves promotion and doing so while stomping Sassuolo in the process. I'm not even mad that we lost to Bari in the last game of the season. We've done what we needed to do for the year here. Now, the promotion to Serie A, admittedly, came a lot faster than what I expected, but we have to establish ourselves as a side that can, at minimum, hang within the mid-table of Serie A next season. Once we've done that, who knows? Sky's the limit. So, we're finally in Serie A. Eat your heart out, Mike Piazza, you piece of During this off-season, we do bring in players like winger Samuele Pirindelli from Monza, a solid defender in Thiago Giallo from Sporting CP, Noah Weishaupt from Freiburg, who we eventually sent out on loan, and some other young transfers for depth. Pre-season injuries aside, we start the year once again with a Coppa Italia matchup, this time against Serie B side Como, and we do securely defeat them 3-1 to kick off the season. Opening the Serie A portion with a pair of victories against Monza and Atalanta before finding ourselves in a Groundhog Day scenario with 1-1 draws against defending champions Napoli, Fiorentina, and Roma before finally getting back to winning ways against Genoa. It is then once again time to meet Sassuolo as the away team in our own stadium. Okay, look, we've been over this already. Even though Sassuolo's ownership might own the stadium, this is still very much our house. And we showed that by beating them 4-0 with Lorenzo Lucas scoring a hat-trick in the process. 10 goals for him in 8 games so far. His form has not dropped since coming into the team last season, even though we are nowhere near winning the possession battle in most of our matches, it's still not stopping our target man from hitting the ball onto the net. But Fury, how is he doing all of that? You might be asking yourselves. Fear not, my friends. There is a perfectly good explanation to all of this.
We like to call it the power game. You know, the power game, it hits all the time. It hits every time. It is non-stop, never fail. And if we knocking out the competition.
That said, we got Juventus next for my 100th game as a head coach. And while they spend their time kind of dominating us all over the pitch, a well-placed header from Lorenzo Lucas on a set piece gets us the goal, the clean sheet.
Blessed be you, the power game has touched another. Yes, sir.
But of course, AC Milan is next on the schedule. And they decide to ruin all of the fun by beating us 2-1. It's like deja vu all over again. The match against Milan does get me thinking that we can't really be complacent. So while our 4 Italian tactic has been working well, and we do have a 4-4-2 in our back pocket, I decided to just tinker with a couple of things, and lo and behold, we've got a new tactic to try out. I'm going to call it the Italian Revolution. Our variation of the original 4 Italian tactic and the OG tactic itself does give us a successful end to the year, with Lecce and Udinese getting dealt with in November. And outside of a draw against Cremonese to start December, we do end up running the table for the remainder of the month against the likes of Empoli, Bologna, Lazio, Pisa in the second round of the Coppa Italia, and Sampdoria. That run of form is good enough to have us in the unlikeliest of positions in the Serie A standings.
Impressive. Very nice.
So after the holidays, our confirmed loan arrivals in Lozano and Matias Godoy arrived to help the squad depth and to help us pick up from where we left off in December. As January does see us get past Torino with a Lorenzo Lucas brace, a Derby Delenza matchup against Parma, where we stomp them in our house 4-0, a full display of the Italian Revolution formation sealing the deal against Inter Milan, and then ending the month with a 3-0 win against Monza. As for our January transfer window, there's only one way to explain it.
Loans. 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 Oh, loans.
Seeing us bring an Icelandic prospect in Mikael Egil Ellertsson, who is with Liverpool, Paul Nebel from Mainz, Germany, and West Ham defender Malang Sarr on loan alongside selling Pellegrini. We also tried to get Endrick on loan. It did not work, unfortunately. So after a busy transfer window and surviving a virus scare, February is upon us. And with it, 2 big games just a few days apart. A key matchup against second place Napoli, 6 points separating us, and 3 days later, the third round of the Coppa Italia against Inter Milan. So of course we lost 4-1 to Napoli, go figure. But we do go with our usual starting roster fresh and ready to tackle Inter Milan. And some way, somehow, the Coppa Italia game provides all of the drama by taking us into extra time, where we do manage to snag victory from the jaws of defeat in order to advance to the quarterfinals against Fiorentina. A match that would happen within a week after this one got played out. Thus, we rotate the lineups against Atalanta for a draw, but outside of Thiago's injury, we do go into the Coppa Italia game relatively healthy, and then we proceed to beat him 2-1 with Lorenzo Lucas getting a brace and punching our ticket into the Coppa Italia semifinals. Granted, we play Fiorentina again days later and they punch us right back by winning 1-0, but look, I'll take that punch if it means winning the Coppa Italia. Have you seen that trophy? The only downside at this point is that Napoli does take first place in Serie A, but look, again, ebbs and flows to this stuff. we'll be fine in the long term. Even with certain concerns like Kasper Poneman having hit a wall as he hasn't scored dating back to our game against Parma in early January. Now, a Coppa Italia win at the very least guarantees us a spot in the Europa League, so having that in our back pocket in case everything does fall apart in the second half of the season is a good thing, especially since on the XG table of the standings shows us being in 8th place and performing way above expectations. That lesson was probably the best one to keep in mind because after we somehow survived tough outings against Roma, after having our game against Genoa postponed because their pitch is waterlogged, and then managing to beat up those Sassuolo jerks 1-0 as the home team, the remainder of March is less than stellar. We somehow start drawing matches, culminating then in a Coppa Italia semi-final first leg loss against Lazio, in which a last-minute goal by us is the only reason why this task doesn't escalate to near impossible levels. The only bright note out of all of this is that we do break our winless streak against Udinese, and with that, we do get a brief international break in which we can take a deep breath, we can relax, and then tackle the final 2 months of the season to get back right into our winning way.
No. Wait.
Let's just move on to April before I decide to take the trip 1,000 miles out west. We definitely feel Luca's absence in the next 2 games, as a draw to Lecce and a loss to Cremonese puts us behind the 8 ball as Napoli starts running away with the Scudetto. Thankfully, the folks get it together, we beat Bologna to recover from this winless streak, and then we go into the second leg of the Coppa Italia semifinals against Lazio and beat them 2-0 in order to advance to the finals to face... It's you again.
I am back! What it do, baby?
We do get Lazio within a few days after the Coppa Italia matchup in Serie A in a similar manner to Fiorentina, but rather than losing this one, we do kind of just beat them down 4-1 before going into our rescheduled game against Genoa. And of course it ends in a 3-3 draw where we blow a 3-1 lead because existence is pain. So we got 5 games to go in May, including the Coppa Italia final. We move on to Sampdoria on the road, and they're the first team on our list of 5 games left, where we do win 2-1, followed by dealing with Torino at home, and then going into the Coppa Italia matchup against AC Milan with some positive momentum. The media reminds us yet again that we haven't beaten AC Milan in our previous encounters, and really this goes further back, because the last time in which AC Reggiana managed a victory against AC Milan goes as far back as May 1st, 1994, where they beat them 1-0 in Serie A. A victory so unlikely at the time that they called it the Miracle in Milan. In current game terms, it's been 31 years since we've last beat them. But if there was ever a time to beat them, this is it. We end up conceding early in the 13th minute as Ismael Benacer scores a free kick from the edge of the box, but a Thiago Giallo pass in the 26th minute does find Kasper Poneman, who chips it over the goalie to tie the game. But Milan does strike back within a couple of minutes on the 36th minute as a couple of passes eventually find Brahim Diaz, who scores a beautiful goal from outside of the box, making it a 2-1 game. Both teams have their struggles, but on the 75th minute, everything changes. Lorenzo Luca boots it and ties the game 2-2.
1 minute later.
Betzos finds Groove, finds the Riva to Lorenzo Luca. Dino! 2 goals in 2 minutes, and we take the lead 3-2, leading into the 91st minute where Ellerson scores a beautiful goal to seal the deal. Barring an absolute miracle from Milan themselves, we will have made history. And we did it. We actually did it. We have beaten AC Milan and we have won the Coppa Italia for the first time in team history. the first major championship for Reggiana in the top flight of Italian football. This win is absolutely huge for us, to say the least. Not only because it's Europa League football, not only because it's an important title for the guys in question here, but it proves that we belong in this tier of football, which is super important for the club's stability moving forward. So with that said, we've got Parma and Inter Milan to end the season. It's a bit of a mixed bag of results as we do beat Parma and end up falling in defeat to Inter Milan, but the ending standings for Serie A are most interesting because at the end of the day, we end up in second place. It's a historic finish with a historic player as Lorenzo Luca manages to beat Ciro Immobile's single season record of goals in Serie A, netting 40 in total. And how did he do that, you may ask? Simple.
Because the power game is for everybody. It's for me, it's for you, it's for the children. It's for the animals, the birds and the trees, vegans, carnivores. You know, if you need something right in your life, if you need something true, something to cling on to, something to hold close to your heart, Power Game's here for you.
That said, it's been a wonderful campaign all around. Hoping to do just as good next year with a lot of the course still intact. But oddly enough, it feels like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, that. We got Champions League football next year. Thanks, see you next year, bye. Okay, we managed to exceed expectations and are still here in Serie A.
Acknowledge me.
But with our regular commitments in Italian football and the UEFA Champions League on the horizon, we have got our work cut out for us. So let's get into what we did in the offseason. We started by agreeing to a whole new contract with Lorenzo Luca, and with the likes of Arsenal, PSG, and Man United sniffing around, better safe than sorry. We also extended a new contract to team captain Michele Colo-Colo, who has been a consistent part of our midfield. We then picked up quite a few new players in the transfer window, but the most important ones being 19-year-old winger Rooney Bardghji from FC Copenhagen, a Polish region wingback Patryk Kałahur from Bayern, midfielder Chetan Dur from Benfica, Torino defender Per Schurs, and we got ourselves a loan for Man City's region wonderkid striker Ben Vici. But just as we bought players during the offseason, we ended up selling them as well. Players like Andrea Ristov, Panos Retsos, Connor Coventry, and after Thiago Giallo complained about wanting a new contract, Besiktas came to us with an offer of 12 million to get him, so I decided to let the Turks have him. But don't worry, with Schurs being signed, and Reggio Emilia's own youth prospect and Luigi Mascanzoni being ready to go for some game time, we're gonna be fine. The schedule does look stacked, but as it turns out, so are we, as we start the season off strong both in Serie A and in the Champions League, including a very strong win against last year's Scudetto winners in Napoli. But we do come down to earth a little bit with losses against Fiorentina and an Antonio Conte-led Roma. We then end up getting Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League next, and we draw 0-0. That's certainly a sign for us to beat up the absolute living daylights out of Sassuolo again. Seriously, the beatings will not stop until either we kick them off of our stadium or we build a new one for ourselves because we're that much bigger than them. Just saying. We end up carrying that momentum all the way through the rest of October and through December in both Serie A and Champions League games. That said, in the Champions League, the games do prove that while we can deal with certain European clubs like CLR Cluj and Red Bull Salzburg, we're still a ways away from the elite clubs in Europe as the draws against Dortmund and Real Madrid showcase. So after the holiday season and into January, we start the month off against AC Milan. So we lose 3-2 and our unbeaten streak of 3 months or so gets broken. This team really is our boogeyman. Thankfully, we managed to survive against Juventus only a few days later and then shifted our focus to the Coca-Cola Supercup final against Napoli. The match itself is a back and forth affair as we get first blood from a Ruan goal in the 40th minute, but Kivica Kvaratskhelia evens it up in the second half. Neither team can end it in 90 minutes, so we go to extra time where it's none other than Lorenzo Luca capitalizing on some incredibly shoddy defending by Napoli to score in the 102nd minute, and then allowing us to hold on for dear life as we win our first trophy of the season. We wrap up January with a pair of ties against Genoa and against Ajax in the Champions League. We then wrap up the month by beating Cagliari and RB Leipzig. With February set to be our busiest month to date in fixtures as of yet, the winter transfer window is quieter than the usual, but we do get some deals done with Juan going over to Atletico Madrid on the transfer. We get Pablo Torre from Barcelona, Dominic Haas from Liverpool on loan, and Leo Zom from Palmeiras, who's a future prospect for us. February also means the knockout stages of the Champions League are here, and we draw RB Leipzig. And we get to do it without our star goalkeeper, who is injured for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Great. We also do finally get our start in the Coppa Italia as we enter in the third round of the competition and dispatch Serie B side Cittadella fairly easily while rotating our side, as we do have a Serie A rematch against Napoli on deck. And it does take a 91st minute Jacopo da Riva goal off of a set piece that initially hit the post to get us the draw, to keep us in pace with Napoli, AC Milan, Inter Milan, Juventus, and Roma. The remainder of February does see us continue our form as we handle our business in the Coppa Italia quarterfinals against Udinese. They ended up drawing 1-1 against RB Leipzig in their house before winning 2-1 in ours to advance to the round of 16 in the Champions League. That said, we do get Michele Colio back from injury now as March is coming up, and Rooney is closer and closer to beating Paneman's assist record.
Ja, vi laver 20 mål, og du laver 20 assists, men ja, 20 assists måske, ja.
Thus, we end up getting Inter Milan as our round of 16 opponents in the Champions League. So the fixtures in March get moved around to where we end up getting 3 out of our next 4 games against them to start the month. We deal with Lecce and Inter in the Serie A games to start the month, but to Inter Milan's credit, they won the first leg of the round of 16 in the Champions League 2-1 in our home, meaning that now we've got to go into the San Siro and get a result there if we want to keep this unlikely run of results going in the Champions League. Malang Sarr getting injured and then a boring 0-0 draw to Fiorentina isn't exactly the kind of momentum or inspiring performances that we would be looking for heading into hostile territory. But Kasper Paneman and Lorenzo Luca do come through with the few chances we get in the second leg, and we do end up beating Inter Milan to head to the Champions League quarterfinals. Right. Of course we get Barcelona.
Your thoughts?
What?
Right, so with our semifinal games for the Coppa Italia announced to take place in early April against Atalanta, we handle our business against relegation side Regina, and then go into April starting off strong by beating Atalanta twice in a row between the first leg of the Coppa Italia semifinal and in Serie A, which lets us continue to keep pace with the other big teams for the top positions. We're overperforming once again as our XG standings actually have us in 11th place, but the actual standings have us in 3rd place, so you know what?
We ball.
Right, so we've got Barcelona on deck for the quarterfinals. And in general, they're still stacked for a team that owes 9 figures is worth still in this universe. Nevertheless, we go into the game. It's a 1-1 draw going into it, but in the 81st minute,
Lewandowski goes through the game. Oh, you just can't do it. You just cannot be that good.
So, how do you bounce back from a tough loss in a Champions League leg against a team that's drenched in that tournament's history? You beat up your local rivals, which is what we do to Parma. Again. But the second leg of the Champions League is soon after that, and thus, we've got to overcome a 1-goal deficit at Camp Nou to even attempt to advance. And while Paneman provides an early goal at the 11th minute mark, Gavi ties it up 2 minutes later. But then in the 42nd minute, everything changes.
Get him off the field!
The dynamic of this game is flipped on its head. Barcelona's down a man, and while they hold strong in the second half, Goals from our captain Michele Colo-Colo and Lorenzo Luca are more than enough to overturn the first leg defeat and for us to escape Spain with perhaps the biggest victory in team history.
What's next? Give me something else. What can't you do? I can do it. I can do anything.
Oh, this really doesn't get any easier, does it?
Wow, I set really high standards, did I?
Alright, we'll deal with them in due time. Let's focus on what's ahead of us first. Serie A-wise, we handle Empoli and Torino with a pair of clean sheets, and then a draw in the second leg of the Coppa Italia against Atalanta is more than enough to move us forward into the final through the aggregate results. We didn't get the Champions League semi-finals first leg, which is a draw. We had the lead for most of it, but then Darwin Núñez decided to actually hit the net for once in his life, and now we gotta go to Anfield for a do-or-die game. But hey, we've made it to the last month of the season. A month where we'll be traveling to Liverpool to try to continue the Cinderella-esque run in the Champions League. A month of crucial games to Serie A title hopes for at least 6 different teams, ours included. And then one final game against Inter Milan, except this time it's for the Coppa Italia. Seriously, is every team in Milan just meant to make my life miserable during this stint? We start the month off against Sassuolo, with us as the away team, and we do beat them up yet again, and that win alone is enough for ownership to 100% back me up on my annual request to improve our training and youth facilities, so that's neat. But the time is finally here though. A trip to Anfield, the second leg of the Champions League semi-final against Liverpool, and the game itself is the purest definition of chaos. Somehow, this thing is streak-free by the end of regular time, nobody can find results in extra time, and thus, we go to penalty kicks, where Liverpool bottles it like it's 2014 all over again. And by hook and by crook, Luigi Mascanzoli kicks the winning PK into the net, and AC Reggiana, for the first time in history, advances to the Champions League final. Wait a second. Why do I hear boss music? Oh, we're just gonna ignore the impeding meteor for now, because the motivation of making it to the Champions League final itself is more than enough to push the boys through the rest of May, as we come through in crucial Serie A games with wins against Lazio, a come-from-behind win against Juventus, and that leads us into the Coppa Italia final against Inter Milan with that beautiful, beautiful trophy yet again in sight. Lorenzo Luca gets the memo and he proceeds to put on a show, getting a hat-trick in the process and winning us our second straight Coppa Italia.
They said it might have disappeared. They said that somewhere over yonder it could never exist again. Yet we all know one thing: the power game is back! Oh, all the days of joy and happiness.
This also means we have a double now for the season with the Supercup win earlier in the year. Pretty neat. But there's no rest for the wicked, as we head straight into a game against AC Milan with Napoli being 3 points behind us in the Serie A standings. Beating them at this point would be absolutely huge, and 2 early goals against them puts us in the right path. And it looks like we're gonna escape with a victory here just fine.
Unit lost.
God damn it!
Losing Luca to a broken foot for these final couple of games in the season is not going to be easy, but it's on the rest of the team to come together and pull through as we have 2 games left in Serie A. Udinese is a chippy affair, but Panamen's goal in the 40th minute is enough for the clean sheet and the win. With Napoli stumbling in the finish line and trailing 3 points behind us, with only 1 game left to go, all that we need to do is win or draw against Genoa to claim our first ever Scudetto. And thanks to Ben Beach's efforts, scoring a hat-trick to help us win 4-1, we do it. AC Reggiana gets its first taste of Serie A glory as we win the Scudetto for the first time in franchise history. It's an accomplishment that exceeds any and all expectations that were placed on us by our board and by our supporters before the season even began. But one that proves that the strategies and the players that we've brought in here, they're more than capable of executing. Needless to say, I am beyond proud of the boys. But all roads do lead us to a historic Champions League final in the Netherlands. We either fall short of the mark and the Cinderella run ends at midnight on the dot, or we somehow take this whole thing and complete an unlikely quadruple by usurping England's final boss. And while the game itself is a struggle as Man City pepper us with shot after shot, we do end up finding an unlikely goal in the 45th minute via Man City's own wonder kid, on loan to us, finding a pass to Michele Colo-Colo, who buries it onto the back of the net. We are 45 minutes away from glory. 45 minutes away from winning the Champions League.
Is that what I think it is?
You didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you?
You know, for a second there? Yeah, I kinda did.
And just like that, the clock struck midnight. It's disappointing, sure, to come this close and yet be so far from the ultimate prize. But we just need to pick up the pieces, and we can make another run at this again. Still, overall, a fantastic season by the club. AC Reggiana is finally been revived, and now it is our time to conquer. Oh, what the fuck? Yeah, that actually happened. Newcastle United met the release clauses for both Kasper Poneman and Michele Colo-Colo.
That was the worst night of my life. I was embarrassed. It was like I woke up after a cheap date. I didn't know what happened. I felt taken advantage of. I never want to experience that horror again.
Now, while those release clauses do give us a boatload of transfer money, we've got to replace two key positions this offseason and fast. But first, Georgi Marmadashvili has barely played in Germany, so we'll do that for our starting goalie. That's a start.
3 days later.
We'll happily take Leonidas Sturgio from Fiorentina for 15 mil. No problem.
1 minute later.
Oh, PSV in the Netherlands has an 18-year-old Japanese striker that looks like he survived Project Blue Lock with his current finishing. We'll take him too. Alright, we've got those and a bunch of other signings between youngsters and some veteran presence, but man, if we want to talk about signings, we got a big one. It's none other than Christian Pulisic. That's right, a signing of a player from none other than
United States of America! Yeah!
What he said. As we went unbeaten in the various friendlies we had scheduled, there was a sense that there was something special brewing here. So with our expectations in place, the start of the season came at the end of August, and from there, until the end of September, we just simply could not be stopped. 8 straight victories to start the year, including a Derby Delenza win versus Parma, plus 2 crucial victories in the Champions League group against Atletico de Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain. But it was none other than the herald of the power game himself who made his mark.
Have you heard it? Because he's about to hear it. Have you heard the good news?
For context, Lorenzo Luca, in a down year last season, which included an injury, scored 38 goals in total across all competitions. He has 8 goals in 8 games to start the year. This man is about to take out the frustration that he missed out on the Champions League final last year on every single person that tries to stop him. And I'm here for it. We then start off October by being the home team against Sassuolo, and in it, Hiroshi Aizen steals the limelight for himself with his first hat-trick of his career. The run of wins do come to an end via a 1-1 draw against Inter Milan.
Damn it, Scotty, it's a
Serie A draw.
not an
Champions League loss.
We'll gladly take the frustrations of that draw onto Olympiacos by beating them 5-0 in the Champions League group stage. Yes, Lorenzo Luca gets another hat-trick, water is wet, news at 11. Here's a brand new and improved contract with a minimum release clause of $150 million because I am not going through what I did at the end of last season again. Let's keep it moving because the unbeaten run continues through November as we only concede 3 goals during the entirety of the month. 2 of them are against Napoli, who did manage to get the early lead on us before we scored 5 unanswered. Torino and Brescia both are beaten 6-0 in Serie A, and then we handle our business against Feyenoord and Servette in the Champions League. But December does prove to be our toughest month to date, as our Serie A run sees us finally beat Cremonese for the first time, then end up with 3 draws in a row against Fiorentina, Roma, and Hellas Verona. The game against Roma resulting in Birindelli getting injured, although I can't complain too much because we do manage to beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge 1-0 thanks to Lorenzo Luca being, well, Lorenzo Luca.
Blessed be you, the power game has touched another. Yes, sir. Who do you think you're messing with, man?
Speaking of which, January is here and the fixtures look merciless. But that said, Torino and AC Milan are our first 2 obstacles during the month, and they get a taste of a Luca brace in both games before we move on to the Supercoppa final against Inter Milan. A rematch of last year's Coppa Italia final, which Inter Milan gets because we won both the Scudetto and the Coppa Italia itself in the same season. So, you're welcome for that, Inter. Take another Lorenzo Luca brace in the process, shut up, and give us our first title of the season already. That match, in getting Juventus 3 days later, does take its toll, as a draw to the Old Lady and a draw to Hertha in the Champions League follow suit, but that Hertha draw is enough to guarantee us a round of 16 spot in the Champions League knockout stages.
Impressive. Very nice.
We follow suit with a win against Genoa with yet another Luca brace, putting him at 25 goals in Serie A with it thus far. But at long last, it's time for the last match in the league group of the Champions League, a rematch of last season's final against Manchester City. That went about as well as expected, and it's our first loss in the entire season. I hope all 300 Man City fans that were in attendance got to enjoy that.
Sí.
From there, we brush Empoli aside and go into the winter transfer deadline. Benfica offers us about 28.5 mil for Malang Sarr, and we decide to sell him for that, and then use the money to invest on a Saudi Arabian wonder kid defender in Faisal Al-Budaikan. We end up settling on loans for Raleigh Mwamba, Diego Miranda, and Patrick Wimmer from Man City to wrap up the window. We go into February and the 3rd stage of the Coppa Italia by facing Sassuolo in the process, and Patrick Wimmer gets himself thrown out of the game with a straight red card after a sliding tackle right into Andrea Pinamonti.
I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
It does take us until extra time, but we do beat Sassuolo 3-1 to advance, thanks to another Luca brace and Saul pouring salt in the wound. We live rent-free in their heads, I tell you. We then get Atalanta in the quarterfinals, and in between a Serie A game against Bologna, which we win, we dispatch them 3-1 to move on to the semis. We take that momentum and just keep on winning games throughout the rest of the month, including beating up Sassuolo for the 3rd time this season. But the big story on the tail end of February is none other than Hiroshi Aizen. Not only did he help Japan in winning the Asian Nations Cup, He also emerged as the top scorer of the tournament with 18 goals in total. That goal-scoring form came back with him as he scored 9 goals total within that second half of February, including a 5-goal game against Salernitana. Between him and Luka, our striker duo is finding the net at every possible chance. And we're gonna need it, as our round of 16 opponents in the Champions League are none other than Napoli.
Buongiorno.
A draw to Lazio to start March isn't ideal, but we do take care of our Champions League legs against Napoli in 2-0 wins.
Arrivederci.
After defeating Napoli, who do we have next in the Champions League quarterfinals? So we wrap up March in a tough game against Atalanta that sees us having to come back from a 1-0 deficit, and with that we go into April with a 16-point lead in Serie A, our top strikers having a combined 57 goals between them, Pulisic and Rooney with 14 and 11 assists respectively, and the XG standings table finally having us in first place for once. Napoli does give us a tough game to start the month, but we do beat them in a high-scoring affair 5-3. Unfortunately, the first leg of the Champions League quarterfinals end up with us getting snake-bitten and Federico Valverde scoring for Real Madrid. Our second loss of the entire season, and the second leg puts us in a situation where we gotta go into the Santiago Bernabeu to get a result. A draw to Juventus in between these games isn't exactly comforting, but the day of reckoning soon comes. As for what happens, well, Lorenzo Luca comes through in the clutch with a brace, and we punch our ticket into the semifinals.
Despite your best efforts, despite how much you don't want to feel the love of the power game, my friend, the power game has touched another. Oh, thank you!
Alright, we've grown used to this territory by now, so who's it gonna be in the semis? Wait, no, not them. Not them again. Okay, we've got 3 games to prepare for our imminent 2-leg encounter against these schmucks. Rest of the month is a mixed bag, but it does include winning the first leg of the Coppa Italia semis against Roma, and us getting closer to winning the Scudetto. In the Champions League semifinals, Man City came at us first, and Haaland scored within 2 minutes.
Yeah, so it's really special.
But unlike the last 2 times, we don't just cave in. We fight back, and with 2 goals from Eisen and Sturgio, we will be leaving Italy with a 2-1 win and taking the advantage going into the Etihad for the second leg. Before the trip to England, we handled our business against Roma in the Coppa Italia semi-second leg, and then got word that it will be Juventus who we will face in the final. But as for that, we'll deal with it in due time, because the second leg of the Champions League is upon us. Early goals from Pablo Torre and Bernardo Silva keep the aggregate score on our side, but within a 10-minute window in the first half, it's Vinicius Jr. who reverses the tides and leads Man City into the second half with a 3-1 lead and a 4-3 aggregate lead. But in the second half, after a long throw-in and a bit of chaos on the Man City backline, a hero emerges. Christian Pulisic steps up in arguably Reggiana's biggest game thus far this season, and his efforts take us into extra time, where a substitution of Lorenzo Luca for Hiroshi Eisen happens, and with it, the first half of extra time sees Eisen score a brace within 6 minutes. And no matter how many attempts follow from Man City, they cannot find another goal, and we managed to do it. For the second consecutive year, AC Reggiana is going to the Champions League final. That said, our opponent in the final is Newcastle. Given how this year started, I couldn't think of a better opponent. Much like last season, the team does take the momentum from the huge semi-final win, and they use it into Serie A as Inter Milan is next on the schedule, and we beat them 4-1. And with the amount of points that we have ahead of second place Atalanta, folks, we wrap it up early. our second straight Scudetto, and the double is sealed. It's strength to strength from here as we carry that momentum into the Coppa Italia against Juventus, which yet another Lorenzo Luca brace gets us our third championship of the season. Right, so we're at the same point we were last year, with a treble on deck and a chance for a quadruple against an English team in the Champions League final.
We're not done yet.
Long story short, the final 4 games of Serie A, we rotated our lineups, and we won out for the rest of the month, setting us up for the Champions League final. There's no doubt that Newcastle's good. They got this far. But unlike last season, there is something very much different. Lorenzo Luca is at 100%. He immediately proceeds to make his mark in the tournament in this final after a Pulisic interception and a long pass finds Luca in the left wing, where he proceeds to run past 4 defenders on his way to scoring his first Champions League final goal. We take the 1-0 lead into the second half and then expand on it after Mamarashvili boots the ball towards Newcastle's half. Luca slipping past the defender on the challenge, taking the ball before striking it from outside of the box and finding the net. An Alexander Isak goal for Newcastle in the 80th minute brings the game to within 1, but we hold them to just that. AC Reggiana are your 2026-2027 UEFA Champions League winners. This is a season to remember in every single way. 4 titles, an invincible season in Serie A, Lorenzo Luca breaking his own goal records from 2 years ago, and finally, the full confirmation of a new stadium in Reggio Emilia that will be ready in 2030. All in all, my work here's done. I have done everything that I could possibly do, and honestly, I could use a vacation before my next adventure. But hey, I know for a fact that whoever takes the job next will do just fine. See? They will have at least 6 years of more success before everything goes to shit.